Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of CTRL INDIE. My name is Juan Jose, and today I have a very special guest, the founder of Moon Mantis Studio, and creator, developer, and publisher of the sci-fi vehicle-based shooter, Trace Hunters. Please welcome to the show, Kyle Gilliam. Kyle, it's an honor to have you here, so to start this episode, please tell us, who is Kyle, aside from the game developer, of course?
Yeah, sure. So I've done a lot of different things. I went to school for electrical engineering, and in grad school, I did kind of atmospheric sciencey stuff. I've worked in the tech industry in various roles in various fields for a little less than 15 years. But I've played games since I was a child. Like, I love playing games. I always thought it was super fun. Actually, like when I was a teenager and I'm deciding, because you have to make this decision, what are you going to do with the rest of your life? And you're like 16, and as if you could make that decision. And I was like, I want to make games, and I didn't make games. My parents were very kind of like, I don't think you should do that.
Happens.
Yeah, and I think it was a good decision, honestly, because it's really difficult working in the games industry, and looking back, yeah, I think we know that story. So for maybe the past like four years, I guess, I've been making games on and off, not commercially until recently, and I was just playing around. In my last job, I wasn't super happy with it. I didn't really like it, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna make and so I made the somewhat crazy decision to go full-time, start a game studio, and make my first ever commercial game on Steam.
And here we are.
Yeah. So I guess I'm a little crazy. I don't know.
Do you believe your long-standing experience in the tech industry played a crucial role in developing your games?
I also have loved sci-fi and fantasy for most of life. I actually watched the first Star Wars, the very first one, A New Hope, the old one, at least 1,000 times as a kid. I would just watch it on repeat, and it probably drove my parents crazy. But so I always like those kind of worlds, and being like, what could exist, what could happen, something beyond what is the present day. And so that really is what kind of drove me to focus on, I want to make a game that's in a sci-fi setting. So I wanted to bring some of those things that I really liked and try to make them into something hopefully someone else likes.
So Kyle, can you give us an overview of your current project?
Yeah, totally. So Trace Hunters is a third-person shooter where you play as a combat vehicle. It's off-road, kind of buggy. It's got a big gun on the top, and the gist of the game that gets into some of the inspirations of games I was playing at that time is you go through missions, you fight a fairly large number of robots. They're kind of dumb, but they try to kill you a lot, and make your way through the mission, completing various objectives. So that some of the inspiration for that for me is I really like the Warhammer series. I was playing Vermintide and 40K Darktide, and I thought those games were really fun. I've played them way more than I really want to admit. And so I wanted to bring in that horde shooter kind of combat thing into the game that I was making, and make something as one person as much as I could that was similar to that. And I got close, I think. I mean, no, it's not multiplayer, which is another story we can get into at some point. But as far as the world goes, I imagined the world of Trace Hunters. The planet is called Kasara. You don't necessarily find that out during the game. There's a lot of lore that's just not in the game, and was me writing things. And on this planet, they used to be very technologically advanced. They could travel through space. They could do all kinds of things. Time travel didn't exist as far as we know, but it was all powered by this crystalline mineral. So a lot of their technology is based on crystals. So instead of mining iron ore or something like that, this planet just has a lot of crystals, and they use them for various things. One in particular was called Cassanite. The planet's named after it, or it's named after the planet. Depends on who you ask, I guess. And it's kind of this source of almost unending energy. So it let them power spaceships, it let them travel out beyond their planet and do some kind of like amazing things. If you wanted like a modern day equivalent to it, it's like what might happen if we actually like invented cold fusion and it worked. And it was this like massive power generating thing. So that's kind of like what I was going for, except making it even bigger. So it's all gone. They mined it all out, maybe. And technology declined. They couldn't keep up with all the stuff they had built anymore. And so their society sort of collapsed. A lot of people left the planet because they could at that point. They're like, we're going to get out here. Like our planet's dead. We're peacing out. But some people stay behind, and the people that stay behind are what this game is about and what the story is about. And now the only way that people cover these like vast distances on the planet are in these like off-road vehicles. For some reason, people don't fly anymore, but
it happens.
It happens, you know.
Yeah,
space.
Yeah, no, but the like the lore is very specific. I mean, you got the like the ore, the vehicles. I mean, yeah, of course. If you look at like in a sense, yeah, you could say, oh, it's very simple. You're a car and you're shooting things. But if you put it in that sense, I mean, you can make a book of it. So, I mean. Yeah,
I've written a lot more about it than is in the game. Like even most of the things I just said, only a really small amount of that is actually in the game. It was kind of like, okay, I can make this like cool world. I think it's cool. But how do I, like, as one person, as like a bootstrapped indie game studio, turn that into a game that people can play?
Was there a structured approach to developing your project, or did it take shape more spontaneously over time?
Kind of both. So I work every day these days, and I have for the past year. I think that's pretty normal for anyone that, I think it's pretty normal for anyone that starts a business, is like they work every single day. Whether you're like actively working or you're just like thinking about it, doing something else. I don't have like set days where I do things. I do have like some meetings with myself on my calendar that are like, we'll do project planning on this day. I really got into the habit of writing. I actually started in January 2024. And I write like weekly updates or weekly reports to myself. I was thinking about, like, I used to write on Substack. I had a wine blog. So I also do wine stuff kind of, or I like enjoy talking and learning about it, but that has nothing to do with gaming yet. So I was writing these like weekly reports to myself that were pretty short, and I intended to like put them on Substack every week. And I did like one of them, and then I didn't do it anymore. And I had this like backlog of 6 or 7. It's kind of like, oh, well, I wanted to put these weekly, but now I've got like, history has advanced past the time since someone last saw one. So I'm going to stop. But I still do them. I think it's really useful because it helps me like be retrospective about what happened the past week and like what I might need to do. So from working in tech for a long time, I worked as both kind of an engineer, as a manager, did some product management, kind of as like a big hybrid thing. I use kind of a task tracking tool called Linear. I don't use Jira. That's like the worst thing ever. And hopefully anyone that sees this also agrees with me. But I like Linear a lot. And so what I'll do, at least for development things, is like, I have milestones that are set on my roadmap. And I'd be like, okay, what do we have to do to get there? And we being me talking to myself in this case. And I'll just plan it out like in rough steps that way, to be like, okay, these things need to get done because I need to update the Steam demo. These things need to get done because I'm applying to an Epic Mega Grant, which I did but didn't get, by the way. And so on and so forth. And so that's like, as far as development is concerned, that's kind of generally the way that I go about it. I try to be pretty like, lean is a buzzword in the tech world, but I try to be pretty lean about it, so that I can like adapt, like if things change. I have a GDD, I've written it, but it's also like, this is my inspirational document. Yes, I'm doing these things, but I may change them over time in some way, and I did. So
Was there a particular reason behind selecting Unreal Engine 5 for your project?
There are many particular reasons. So wind it back to, I said I've been doing this for a year, but Trace Hunters has only been in development really for about 7 months before I released it. Before that, I was doing a lot of different stuff, honestly. I was prototyping. I'd started out like, I'm going to make a multiplayer PvP car combat game, because I was initially going from like Twisted Metal-ish thing. And I was using Unity for that. I was writing like the multiplayer code for it. And it was like really painful in Unity, I thought, personally. Yeah. And I found that I was writing a lot of boilerplate and all this. I did a game jam with a friend, and he used Unreal. That's like, he introduced me to it. We won that game jam, which was sweet. That helped me buy a new computer. Which really was the only reason I could continue using Unreal, because my old computer, I had this like Frankenstein machine that I had kept alive for 15 years. Did I mention I'm an electrical engineer? But so I initially went to Unreal because if you do multiplayer in Unreal, you get a lot of things for free. So it's all like integrated with the engine. You get like check little checkbox, and it's like, oh, you got replication that pretty much works, pretty much. And it was just a lot easier to do multiplayer that way. And I also found that it's like, wow, it's a lot easier to make things that look really nice this way too. And so that got me into it at first. Spoiler alert, the game is not multiplayer anymore, but that was kind of my first step into it. And now that I've been using it, like, I really like Unreal. I can write code in a bunch of different languages, but most of the time I use Blueprint because it's like the workflow is easier, like the feedback loop is faster. The C++ feedback loop is a little slow. It's kind of annoying sometimes. But I still used it every now and then for some of the multiplayer code. So that's my glowing review of Unreal Engine.
Posted,
So maybe Unreal is listening, and they'll be like, "Oh, we like this guy more."
Kyle, how do you handle bug testing, quality assurance, and all those aspects of game development as a solo dev?
Basically, I force everyone that I know and/or come into contact with to play the game.
Play now.
Play now. No, I did do that, but I luckily I live in the Bay Area in California, so San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a lot of game dev groups around here, and so I would go to some of those. There was a co-working event. I'll say it's at a museum called the MADE. It's a museum of digital entertainment. And they had a co-working group there that I went to, so a lot of people there played the game. Also, just like people on Discord, or I did something that I don't recommend anyone do. I think it was a very bad decision, but I launched my demo in a really, like, the first demo of Trace Hunters was terrible. It was in a really bad place, but I launched it to get it out there because I'm thinking like, okay, like, I know how to build a tech startup. That means you launch this like pretty broken product and you get people to use it and you get feedback on it and you make it better. And so that's what I tried to do with Trace Hunters for its demo. Turns out it was a really bad idea. I got a lot of good feedback, but all of those like marketing events that happen when you first release the demo, like, well, okay, now they all pointed at this really bad demo.
Every marketing is good marketing.
I won't do that again. But it was great to learn. I have like several YouTube videos of people like playing the demo and just getting stuck. It's pretty hilarious. Yeah, I mean, if you go on YouTube and go to like Trace Hunter's channel, you can watch some of the early videos of people playing the game, and they'll like get stuck and they're like flipped upside down or like rammed into a wall, and it's like, that was great feedback, but not very good marketing.
Of course.
What technical, financial, or emotional obstacles did you come across during the creation of this project?
There's a lot of them. The technical part is honestly the least of those three obstacles. In my case, I guess. I think for some people this is a different situation, unless you take 2D and 3D art and also put them in technical, which I am not a very good artist. I've been learning, but I'll get back to that later because I think there's something really interesting there. So for the technical stuff, you know, if I run into a problem, like a technical problem I didn't know how to solve, I just look it up. I go read the docs, the API docs, I watch some YouTube videos, or I just like bang my head on the keyboard for a while until it works. and usually like that gets through it. You know, it's read the source code for the engine, which, hey, there's another good marketing point for Unreal. You can read the source code. Yeah. And it's actually really helpful to do that because you're like, why in the hell is this happening? Oh, there's a like random value that's hard coded. Yeah. So that one maybe not as interesting. The financial aspect, as I mentioned, like I have no funding. I'm bootstrapped. So the funding is my savings account, and that is tough. Really, you just do what you have to do to try to make money. You know, the hackathon that I did, I won a little money from that I split with my friend. I've done some contract work. Other people, mostly in the game dev space, random things here and there where it's just like, oh, I can do this to make money. Okay, let's do this. So you just have to be like really scrappy. It's especially hard living in the Bay Area because like it's very expensive here. It's like one of the most expensive places to live in the world. So if you're doing like remote freelance contract work, the rate that you have to charge to like even break even for your time in the Bay Area is more than the majority of people would ever want to pay. Whereas if I lived somewhere else, $80 an hour is a lot, but in the Bay Area, it's not. That's like barely, it wouldn't even cover most people's rent. So that's a challenge. I haven't solved it. I'm still trying to solve it.
Yeah, it's hard.
The emotional aspect, especially like working alone, the like loneliness factor is definitely there, and that's you got to figure out how to deal with that, how to like deal with yourself, because you're the number one risk for the game or the project when you're working alone, or even when you know if you're not optimally functioning, then stuff's going to go downhill. So I try to be aware of that. Like it's not really my first rodeo with starting like trying to start my own thing. I had several, like 6 potential startups that I tried to do something with, and none of them went anywhere. I occasionally would make a sale, but I try to like get out once per day, either to go everything around here is walkable for the most part, so I would go and like walk somewhere, like walk to a coffee shop and do some work there. Work that didn't require me to be in the engine, like doing marketing or like writing content or something like that. Also, like there's a Discord group. I don't know if you know of Bite Me Games. They're very popular YouTubers. They're very cool. Their Discord is very cool. And I talk with Marnix about once per month on his like Patreon thing. I just like emailed him randomly because I was in Amsterdam at the time. And I was like, hey, Marnix, we don't know each other. Do you want to like talk? And that was like way back in November of 2023. And so I've been doing like monthly, just like random chats with them, and I think there's actually a lot of value to that maybe is understated. I see a lot of people that they're like, oh, I just want to talk to Elon Musk or something like that about my problem. It's like Elon Musk will not be able to help you with your problem. He is so far ahead of anything that you're doing that he is not going to be able to help you unless he just gives you money. So I think there's a lot of value in talking to someone that's like a few steps ahead of you, not like math, like miles and miles and miles or kilometers in everyone else's case, except for the US. So I think there's a lot of value in that. They're a lot closer to the problems you're having. It's also just helpful to like bounce ideas back and forth. So yeah, if you're solo, find your niche, find your little community, and that way it's kind of like having coworkers.
What's the biggest takeaway you've had from working on this project?
One, I tried to do something a little risky for this first game. One, I tried to make a co-op vehicle shooter. That's what the game was. at first. It was this co-op game that was like Vermintide or like Darktide.
Yeah.
And while it like worked, I spent 2.5 months working on the multiplayer code, getting everything to work.
Yeah.
And during that time, I could have been marketing things and like, or paying attention to the market and noticing that the vehicle combat genre is not exactly very popular. And that was kind of my attempt at, can I make something in this genre that used to be popular when I was a kid but just fell off? The answer was kind of no. So market research is really important if you're making games commercially. You need to keep that in mind. I should have kept it in mind more. I had some decent early signals, but I'll actually have another video coming up on YouTube. I'm going to start doing some YouTube videos where I'll talk more in depth about that. So that's one lesson. The other one is like, don't ignore marketing. Do not ignore marketing. Like, you have to market your game. You have to show people what it is. And if you don't like certain social media, you have to kind of suck it up and do it. Because that's where players are, or that's where you can at least start getting eyes on it. Whether they're players, whether they're YouTubers, whether you presumably found me somehow, probably because I had social media or YouTube posts.
Yeah.
So that's a super important part of it, like just as important as the development of the game.
How do you ensure a healthy balance between your work in game development and your personal life?
I do it poorly.
But I'm here.
I do it poorly. So I do a few things, or I try to do these. I try to exercise at least 3 times a week. Some weeks I fail. I go rock climbing a lot. So there's a rock climbing gym that's pretty close to me, and I go there 3 times a week, if not more, to either climb or like just do gym stuff. I think exercise is really important. Like, you have to also exercise because it helps your brain work better. It helps you think. So that can help. As far as like mental health, it's good to talk to people. At least I think so. So one reason I like climbing is like it's fairly social. You can talk to people while you're there. You may not know them, but like everybody's pretty chatty most of the time. I'm also a pretty outgoing person, so I'll just like talk to people at random. No,
that's good. That's good.
That can help too,
No, of course. No, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, just try to like get out of my room and go somewhere else. Don't be in front of the computer as much as you like think you need to be to continue grinding on whatever it is you're doing. Go outside, touch grass, as they say. So that's kind of my outlet, at least. Sometimes Discord too. I like just like chatting with people on Discord every now and then. And that's
So Kyle, as a developer for Trace Hunters, what's the one element of the game that stands out to you as a point of pride?
Probably for me, the most interesting thing about Trace Hunters is I think I have some pretty satisfying weapons, like combinations of weapons. I may have not like delivered that very well in the game and made it obvious that there are combinations of them. But I think I've made a pretty decent set of weapons that you can use that like feel different and are satisfying to play with. I have a few favorites that like one of them is it's called the like particle accelerator. It's like a railgun weapon. I think it's very cool. I like it a lot. It is probably the most difficult weapon to use because it shoots pretty slow, but it goes through literally everything. So if you manage to maneuver enemies where they're all lined up in this like beam in front of you, you get some really satisfying results. All the little drones just like fly away, and that's like, I would actually sometimes, as I'm playtesting, maybe I'm, I don't know, conceited for enjoying my own game, but I would like I need to relax. Okay, I'm just gonna playtest a little bit, and I didn't playtest very well because I would pretty much always use the like the particle accelerator and the cluster mines, and I would be like, all right, line up drones. It was, I just thought it was really satisfying to do that.
Of course.
I did kind of tease the other one I liked was the cluster mines, because I thought it was funny to like shoot the little mines out and like slide them under enemies. Then they have this delay before they explode, as long as they don't hit anything. They like slide under the enemies, and then so I thought that was really fun.
Kyle, what is your strategy for integrating specific art styles, color palettes, and sound design elements into your projects?
Well, I'm not an artist, at least not a very proficient one. I'm getting better. I'm also one person, so I have to be like very conscious about how creative I get with that. I used a lot of store assets. I'll tell you up front, like some people think it's a shameful thing. I guess some people do, but I don't think it is. It's like a very realistic thing that, hey, not everyone as a single human can make every single thing in the game. So I tried to be very conscientious about how I chose them. And when I look at them, I say, it's like, could this feasibly exist in the world? Does it reasonably look like something that could be there? I made concept sketches of most things. That was actually one of the most valuable things that I did that I didn't expect. Was I like I want to get better at drawing. I want to get better at illustration. And so I did a bunch of online course stuff for just illustration in general. And that was super helpful. And it's kind of surprising, like even though almost all of the assets, there are some that I made, are things that I bought online as store assets. They are kind of close to my concept sketches. And I can like flip back through my sketchbook and look at some of the old sketches and be like, oh, that's this place. So I thought it was kind of an interesting experience, but it was really helpful for me to try to make the world consistent in some way, despite taking all of these pieces and putting them together. I did edit them a little bit to kind of like make sure the color palettes worked with each other. It didn't look totally off, or like remove or move parts of the mesh that's on there to make it work the way I wanted it to work. Or if there was like something I just didn't like on it, I'd chop it off or change it. So that's kind of my scrappy way of doing art, is like have the vision in mind, understand what it is you want the world to be like, but be flexible, because the realism of the matter comes in that you're only one person. And you have to be a little bit flexible if you want to launch this game anytime in the next decade.
Yeah, of course.
Sound design, I've ranted about art a bunch. Sound design, I actually, so I'm a musician. I play music. I play all kinds of instruments.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Nice. I started playing electric guitar. Right, that was my first instrument that I played when I was a kid. Picked up a bunch of other ones. So I try to pick music that I like, that I enjoy, and like I like metal music. I like some electronic music, and that's what it is in Trace Hunters. I tried to design it in a way, also taking inspiration from the way that Darktide did its music, because I think in that game, if you've played it, the way that they've done their music design is really cool. It's really cool. I mean, they did a great job. Massive team of people too.
Of course.
But I liked how the music in Darktide matched the intensity of what was going on in the game, and that's something I tried to do with Trace Hunters, where it's like if you're just cruising through the canyons and there's not a lot of fighting going on, I tried to have like a more chill vibe to it, like more chilled music, and I used some like synthwave type tracks when you go into an area that's like it's about to get hard. I lean more into the like heavy metal, like faster pace music, and tried to get like weapon sounds and vehicle sounds that fit with that music. So I didn't make any of the music at PAX, but I used my like amateur music production skills to kind of make sure that they go together in a way that's like it kind of sounds cool. So
do you use any DAW in particular? FL Studio, maybe Ableton?
Ableton, yeah.
Nice.
I used Ableton before. So for a while I was taking voice lessons and got into like songwriting, and I was using Pro Tools at first because I had a free thing for Pro Tools, and then I switched to Ableton because like Pro Tools has this like cloud save thing and you can only have 3 songs, and it's like I have more than 3 songs.
Like everyone.
So, yeah. Yeah. So I if you search hard enough on the internet, I will not tell you where to find them. You can find some of my very, very poorly produced and poorly performed songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of these days I'm going to get back into it. But it was super helpful actually when it came to designing the sound for the game, because it's just like, oh, I'm already familiar with all of this. Sweet.
This might be a bit off topic, but is there any musician, band, or artist that you particularly enjoy?
Ooh, that's hard. That is hard.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
I know.
I mean, there's so many. It's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's like by genre.
Basically.
Okay. I'll go, just because this popped in my head and I heard a kind of an electronic song this morning. One of my favorite electronic producers is Maya Jane Coles. She does house music, kind of like darker house music. She's very cool. I've been to a few of her shows because she comes to San Francisco pretty often, and not recently, younger me would go, and yeah, I still listen to her new stuff when it comes out. I think she's really cool. Has a lot of good music.
Yeah, of course.
What methods do you use to market your game, and which ones have proven successful?
So the number one thing that works is content creators. If you can get content creators to make content of your game, they have a following already. Their following's already interested in what they're doing usually, and that can help you a ton. I cold emailed people. That was like, I went on YouTube or went on other places and looked up like games similar to what I was making, be like, okay, who makes content like this? And I spent a long time just scrolling through the list and be like, okay, this one, and get their emails and then send them a cold email to be like, hey, would you want to play my game?
Again.
Maybe. Yeah. So, and I get for a lot of people, it can be scary to cold email, but at the end of the day, the worst thing that happens is someone says no, or they most likely, if they say no, and it's like kind of a compliment.
Yeah,
because it's like they cared enough to respond. Most people just don't respond. I think I sent I didn't send that many. I actually sent about 40 or 50, which is a very small number of cold emails, but I'm pretty good at cold emailing. So I've got the cold email skills down, and I can write pretty good cold emails that people want to respond to, because I've done it a lot. But especially like, hundreds are not unusual. Because the response rate for cold email is so low. But all you need is a couple people. If you get 4 or 5 people to go out and make content for your game, then that's huge. That can help you a lot.
Of course.
And other content creators see it and they want to make content for those videos, and so on and so forth, and it gets this ball rolling. Socials are really helpful too. I have not been the best at posting on socials. I thought about it in terms of like, what are my marketing beats? Like, what are the relevant events in my game? Or at least I grew to do that. I didn't do that at first. Now we're just like, this is what I'm doing. And nobody.
This is me now.
This is me. And no one cared. But but I got a little better at it, more like conscientious about it, and be like, okay, I'm building up to this thing. I'm going to start posting 3 times a week. I'm going to post content like this. I'm going to switch between my personal social and my studio social, if I had one. For on Twitter, like, my personal social is larger than my studio social by, I don't know, a factor of probably 6 or 7. And so I did a combination of both there. I also posted that content on every other social media that exists for the most part. I even got a TikTok account, which is like, whoa, the old guy got a TikTok account. That was an utterly overwhelming experience the first time I opened it, and was just like, what is this app screaming at me?
Everything is so loud. Yeah.
It's so loud. It moves everywhere.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
So
it's
that was
insane.
an experience, and just like learning how to use the different socials. In terms of wish lists, it wasn't that great. Like they weren't that useful, but I think it helps a lot with visibility to do that. I did use ads too. I tried ads. And what I do with ads that like I'm actually kind of proud of, maybe I'm giving away the secret sauce or whatever. But so going into Next Fest, I wanted to like try to get Trace Hunters positioned as good as possible in Next Fest, so it hopefully got a lot of wish lists. And so in addition to my social posts, in addition to content creators, I ran ad campaigns first as a test before to be like, where do people even care about this? Because like you can pay $1,000 to run an ad on Reddit, and if it's not shown to anyone relevant, then you just wasted $1,000. And so I ran ads on Reddit and Facebook and one other place that I don't remember. But the Facebook ads were by and large the best performing. And for me, it changes based on all kinds of things. And so I ran an ad campaign at the same time and helped to like drive a lot of traffic to my store page, which generated some wish list, which successfully got Trace Hunters listed higher up in the list. And so I was like really proud of that. It's like, whoa, I executed an ad campaign effectively.
Check.
Check. Yeah.
Of course.
How do you manage receiving and implementing feedback?
Feedback is a really interesting topic, and it's one that I can, unfortunately for you, talk about for maybe the next 6 hours.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. Are you regretting this yet?
Yeah.
So we'll break that into positive and negative feedback. So positive feedback it's really good for your ego. It makes you feel good. It makes you want to continue doing what you're doing. It doesn't necessarily help you improve because you know that people liked it. Cool. Especially if it's face-to-face or if you're talking to someone directly, more often than not, they'll just tell you good things because they don't want to hurt your feelings. A lot of people, they're nice at their core. I believe, I like to believe, outside of maybe some trolls on Reddit. They'll just say nice things. And that's not the most valuable for you if you're trying to improve. So that's where you have to be really tactful and ask them questions to try to draw out, like, what is your actual things that I can improve? And so through a series of questioning, if you can, try to get them to be more specific, try to get them to talk about the game some more, just like listen to them. It's like, oh, well, what did you think of this level? Oh, I didn't play that far. Okay. Like that gives me good context for how to understand the feedback that you gave. I just understood, like maybe you only played the game for 10 minutes. And that can, especially like user reviewing, player interviewing, that kind of questioning can help you a lot to understand the context of the feedback that they're giving and how you can then use it. Negative feedback can be the most soul crushing and the most useful. Sometimes it's a rant, sometimes it's very useful. Most of the time, I think it can kind of be both. Like even when you get people that are posting, it's like, this is trash, blah, 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 as is somewhat common. There are like useful pieces in there. And they'll usually they'll say some specific piece of like, the vehicle controls are terrible, which in this case was true of Trace Hunters. Which I tried to fix multiple times. But it was really useful to me because like I'm so used to playing it that I know how to get around the quirkiness of it. And it helps me see that and try to like put my feet in the shoes of someone that doesn't know how to use the quirkiness of the controls and be like, oh, I see, like it spins around randomly there. Yeah, that's hard. But that's how you can improve. You know, you have to like kind of set your ego aside a little bit when you go into these type of situations and just listen to people and get them to talk.
Did you experience any interactions or get any positive review or feedback that made your day better?
Yeah, I do actually. And this one is, I'm going to give a shout out to another YouTuber. But I was cold emailing, and I got a response back, and the guy was like, "Yeah, I'll make a video." Cool. I'm like, "Sweet, he's gonna make a video." His video comes out, and apparently I was the first person that had ever cold emailed him to ask him to make a video. And he gave this like story of how like he wanted to do YouTube. He like was like really enjoyed that someone reached out to him, like asked him to make a video, and he thought that was really cool and meaningful to him. And for like me to watch that and be like, oh wow, I like actually made that person's day just by cold emailing him, like that's very cool. And that was really motivating for me to like go work on the game more, because that's really like when you're working alone, especially, motivation is hard. You have to find a way to motivate yourself, and like his comment about that was, I don't know if he knew it was, but it was really motivating for me to see that like the effort was appreciated. It's like, oh sweet. His channel is Rock the Riff, by the way, so maybe if someone hears that, they'll go check him out. He's a very nice guy.
Aside from game development, are there any personal projects you're deeply involved in?
I don't have many personal projects these days. I'm kind of working on, if I'm working on something, it usually has something to do in some way with the studio. So when I went into this adventure, my personal projects went out the window. It was like most of them in some way deal with trying to make a business in gaming successful.
Yeah.
So I like pushing boulders up a mountain, I guess. I have a few things that are like on the backlog that I want to do. I mentioned the wine blog on Substack for a while. I was still writing some of those at the very, very early days. I want to get into like doing that more, like more content creation, because I think it's cool. I enjoy doing it. Like I especially enjoy writing. I thought that was a lot of fun, writing on Substack and like interacting with some people there. I have it on my back burner somewhere to to get back into that. Maybe it'll be soon. The related to that, which I guess you could consider a side project, is again with wine. I am a winemaker. I was, for like fun. I think it's cool, and I really drink wine. I just like making it and learning about it. So do with that what you will, I suppose. But I've done several certifications through an organization called Wine and Spirit Education Trust, or WSET, and so I'm almost done with their like final level qualification. I have one more exam that I'm hopefully going to pass very soon, and I'll have a diploma in wines. So yeah, it keeps me sane, you know, like going to the coffee shop and like reading about wine for a while, or like studying. It was like that break to get away from game dev.
Of course.
Given that you founded Moon Mantis Studio, why didn't you choose to develop games as Kyle, as a person? Was it a strategic marketing choice or something else?
It's a bit of separation. Yeah, it's I don't know if it's a good strategy, but it's a strategy, and I think it's really useful to do that. It's really hard though, because when I created the new studio account, which spoiler alert, I actually like hijacked one of my old Twitter accounts. So it had like 20 followers at that point. It was like a AI app that I tried out one time to do like marketing copywriting, and I worked on it for like 3 weeks and was like, I really don't like this. so I stopped. But I still had like that account laying around, and it was just sitting there collecting dust, and so I turned it into the Moon Mantis Games account, which maybe I didn't start at 0, I started at 20, which is basically 0 in social media land. And, I really post most often from my personal account, because I pay for, at least on Twitter, where I have a personal account and a studio account. So I post most often from the personal because I have Twitter X or Premium or whatever it's called now. And I don't know how helpful that is, but it seems to be like somewhat helpful. with like replies. People seem to see the replies more often after I paid for it. I don't know. But I'll try to like repost the content on my personal if I post in the studio, or like repost the studio's content for my personal, and so on and so forth, to like get it out there. And try to like, so my personal account is not large. I have like 650 followers, which is not large at all in the grand scheme of social media. Yeah, but the thing that to me is kind of interesting about Twitter specifically is well, I guess it's not true anymore. At one point, most of the people that were like followed me on Twitter, I actually had interacted with in real life in some way. And so that was really cool because people would actually like interact with my posts in some way instead of it just like sailing out into the void of 1,000 bots. So I don't know, it's a kind of rambly thing. I think it's a good thing to do to like separate those two, because like eventually if your thing takes off, or like you want to grow that thing, it's valuable to have it like have its own account so it can attract its own audience, post its own kind of content. Also, it's a consistency thing where like, for example, I don't have a personal TikTok. I have a studio TikTok. I don't have a personal Instagram. I don't really know. I have a studio Instagram. And so just from a consistency perspective across socials, if you have like the same social handle or as close to the same as you can, then people know regardless of what social they're on that like that's you. So I think that's a valuable thing to do. It is hard, especially when you don't have a lot of followers, or the algorithm hasn't. The followers I think actually are part of it, but it's like the algorithm has to get to know you first before anything ever happens with your content. So there's this like warming up period when you want to start posting that you have to like signal to the algorithm. It's like, hey, I'm relevant. You want to post my content, and warm it up for like a month and then it'll maybe start posting your content. But yeah, it's very interesting from an algorithm perspective. You know, I was a machine learning kind of recommendation system guy back in the day, and so like I think it's kind of cool to try to like dissect the algorithms a little bit.
It's weird because you post something and you have like, I don't know, 100 impressions on the post, and you're like, okay. And the next day you have like 7,000, and the next day you have one, and you're like, okay, I'm the same person.
The one is always the one you put the most effort into. And it's I spent 6 hours crafting that wonderful video, and one person saw it. And that like 5-second thing I recorded because I thought it was funny, of like these, I had one video that did this. I got like 7,000 views or something, and I was just like, it was late at night, I was like screwing around, and I had some prototype enemies that were cubes, and all they did was go forward and spit a cube at something else. And I thought it was really funny because they all missed by like inches. They would never actually hit me. They would just shoot their little cubes on the ground, and they would like collect on the ground. And I made this video of it and like posted it, of like making fun of them, and it got a ton of views. I was just like, what? Why? This of all things? Yeah. So you never know what's gonna work. I think at the end of the day, it's what entertains people. The posts that are like, basically, they're like, go wishlist my game, they usually don't do well on their own unless you push them in some way. But if you just like do something entertaining, then like people are on the platform because it's got their attention, and what continues to get their attention is like controversial things or entertaining things. And well, I didn't want to do a controversial thing, so I did an entertaining thing.
Step away from that, you know.
Yeah. My hot takes, I guess, could probably get more engagement or something.
Yeah, of course.
I know it might be too early to say, but what are your future plans for the studio?
It's not too soon. I'm looking at part 2. I've done some prototyping. I owe social media a post because I promised I would post. Not that social media cares, but so I'm kind of working on a concept for a horror game, where gist of this, or like the story I have in mind, is like you're part of a lighthouse restoration crew. You're going to a remote lighthouse. There's a big storm. Your boat capsizes, and you wash ashore on the island in this like beach cove, and you have to not die through all the various terrible things that are about to happen to you. Maybe. So that's what I'm playing with. I had a real life like IRL event where I had a prototype that I made in a couple days and was just like, please play this and tell me what you think. Just to see what it's like to make a horror game, because I'm a total wimp. And if I play a horror game, I played like Outlast, the first Outlast, and I think I played it for 15 minutes before it was just like, nope.
Yeah.
So it's been really interesting because I've had to go like watch these videos that I normally would never watch because I am a total wimp. And but it's been cool. It's been cool to work on. So I don't know if it'll turn into the next game. It may not. So I'm just kind of prototyping around right now, seeing what might come. I have no shortage of game ideas. I just have a shortage of time to work on them.
Yeah. Is there any significant wisdom you've gained through your journey?
I'm gonna say this in a way that's hopefully not discouraging.
No, of course.
To that person, like if your goal is to make games for money, to make games commercially as your job, for your first game, just make something and make it fast and put it but take it seriously. Try not to take more than 3 months making it, because it's probably not going to work. It's probably not going to sell well. That's just like the unfortunate odds. Most of the time, your first game, most of the time, your second game really doesn't work. You might get some sales, but there's a lot of value in just like going through the steps of releasing a game, because it's more than just working on it and pressing the release button on Steam. There's all kinds of mistakes you make along the way. There's all kinds of, you learn that, hey, you might not want to launch a demo that's in a really broken state because of these marketing things that happen. And so just don't make a game that you really are super into. I spent way too long making Trace Hunters. I'm not following my own advice on this. I did it poorly. I thought I wasn't doing it poorly, but I was wrong. And just like accept that you're probably going to screw things up a lot the first time. And with the caveat that like maybe don't make something in a genre that is incredibly saturated or is like incredibly hard to sell anything, like 2D platformers. 2D platformers, everyone wants to make them, but they're incredibly difficult to sell. And if you do make one, maybe don't, unless you're just like the best pixel artist in the world or something. Maybe don't expect a lot of sales. So try to find genres that are, but there seem to be a lot of interest in, but maybe not a lot of games in. That's very hard to do.
Yeah.
I would probably just do it if I knew the answer, but I don't. And yeah, take it that way. So be like, keep in mind that you're in it for the long haul. If you're making games commercially, it's more about the games that you make over time as a studio, and it's not necessarily about that worst game. So Trace Hunters isn't my last game. Spoiler alert. There will be more. There will be at least one more, hopefully better. I would like for there to be many more. So that's kind of it. Also, maybe like don't quit your day job and go all in on the first one, maybe. Unless you just like, take that with a grain of salt. Like if you like what you're doing in life right now, or you can tolerate it, then probably stay and work there. It's fine. But if you really don't like it, then I think you should get out and go do something else. So it's a very personal decision. Got to be aware of the financials.
Of course. No, it's basically the most important thing. You need to eat.
Yeah, you need to eat. At the end of the day, you do need to eat. And it would be nice to buy something besides the the low end can of beans. You might want the fancy beans every now and then.
Kyle, what industry trends or changes are you keeping an eye on, whether it's with excitement or concern?
There's several. I think it's exciting that it's becoming easier for more people to make games. I think it's really cool because a lot of people want to do it. They want to get into it. The other side of that is it also means many more games are going to be made, and so that makes competition much more difficult. It's not a zero-sum game though. Just because someone plays my game doesn't mean no one is gonna play yours. So that I don't think that mentality fits very well in gaming, because the truth of the matter is, even if you think of yourself as a player, do you only play one game? How many do you play? Usually most people will have a main game or something, usually something multiplayer, probably AAA, that they play with friends, and then they play a bunch of other games on the side. Or so it's not like there's only one game that's the only one the market buys, otherwise it would collapse. Another side of that though is cost of living is going up in many places, and the cost of games is not going up, and so it becomes more and more difficult for people to actually make games as something more than a hobby. And that's concerning to me, especially living in the US, where it's very difficult to do that. In the Bay Area, it's very difficult to do that because it's so expensive. And so that's just concerning for me. It's wow, that would kind of suck if suddenly the games that people make outside of massively funded AAA are things that they just have to do as a side hobby. I would like for people to be able to do that full time as the thing that they do, because that's what they enjoy doing.
Before we wrap this up, is there anything you'd like to say to your fans or followers?
I mean, can I say subscribe, and possibly buy my game on Steam?
No, go ahead.
Okay, seriously. my joke aside, but it's not a joke. Do those things. If you played Trace Hunters, I really hope you enjoyed it. I hope you liked the game. It is a short game. It takes about an hour to finish it, which is kind of intentional. I'll be making more games. There's more coming out soon. I'll announce them on all the socials in some form or fashion. So that's what's coming.
Kyle, it's been fantastic having you on this episode. To everyone tuning in, make sure to follow Kyle and Moon Mantis Studio on social media, and please don't forget to check out the Moon Mantis Studio YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment or subscribe. My name is Juan Jose, and thank you for watching.
The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in this video are the speaker's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Control Plus Indie and its owner. The material and information presented here is for general information purposes only. The Control Plus Indie name and all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All information, images, videos, or any multimedia content shown in this show is copyrighted. All rights reserved for Kyle Gilliam and Moon Mantis Games.